All right. Good afternoon, I guess, since it's just afternoon. I want to welcome y'all to the Listen Up. We're talking about selling show. So we're going to have a great time today. We're going to talk about selling, and we're going to talk specifically about listening as part of the sales process. So my name is Mark Banfield. I'm the founder of Banfaith Sales Systems. And I'm kind of the moderator, leader of this crew of sales experts. So I want to bring them on in and let them introduce themselves for you. We're going to start with, let me change this to here, Ron Catranio. Ron, you want to do a quick introduction of yourself?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. How you doing today? I'm here in beautiful downtown South Florida, where the weather's beautiful and the sun is shining and the water's chilly. Anyway, we're here to provide some information and to give you a little bit more education on how to be successful in the automotive business or the power sports business with what's going on in the world today.
Yeah, that what you just said about the beautiful weather reminded me of a Jimmy Buffett song. You are here, the weather is beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So moving on. Let's bring in Mike Mersman. Mike, you want to do a quick intro?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Mersman. As Mr. Banfield said, I've been around and helping people in their selling and other type careers for almost 40 years now, and having a good time. And I'm in South Carolina, actually, where it's warmer than home in Ohio, but here to have a good time and help a few people get up the ladder. That's what we want to do. So happy days. Glad you're here.
All right. I'm going to bring in Michael now. Michael, you want to introduce yourself?
I sure will. My name is Michael Blythe, and I would like to bring everyone greetings and salutations. I happen to be in the vacation capital of the world, folks, Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I have 25 plus years in the automotive industry, sales, service, parts, working for automotive manufacturers. Also, a gentleman in the sales arena you may or may not have heard of. He goes by the name of Grant Cardone. So I worked with Grant Cardone out of Orlando, Florida. Happy to be here. Happy to be with this fine group of mastermind salespeople and people who are going to really give you a lot of good information, focusing on listening today as we incorporate that into the sales process.
All right. Oh, where'd he go? We lost Jay. I was going to bring Jay in, and he just went away. So we'll now bring in Alex then. Alex, you want to do a quick intro?
Hello, I'm Alex Thayer. I'm up in Michigan here, and I have a company, Michigan Dealer Service, that works with dealerships all shapes and sizes with marketing, training, finance, and F&I products, and all sorts of other stuff. So glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
All right. Hold on. I got distracted for a second there. And finally, Mark, you want to talk about yourself, Mr. Shenaberry?
Good morning or afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. I'm Mark Shenaberry, and glad to be here. I'm in beautiful Metro Detroit, Michigan, and not too far from Alex. And I'm just glad to be here. You know, before I hand it back to you, Mark, I just want to ask Mike. Mike, I know you just went to South Carolina this week, and I was wondering, did you intentionally want to participate in a hurricane, or did you not think about that?
No, I did think about that, actually, and luckily we went west before we came east.
So there you go.
It did not hit Nashville, and even did not hit Asheville.
Okay.
So I took 3 days around to get to where I normally get in about 8 hours.
All right. Very nice. Okay. So there was another gentleman that was ready to log on, and he evidently had to step out. So we'll just run with this. If Jay comes back, we will bring him in. So what I want to do right now is I want to put this picture up because we're talking about listening. So my degree is in communication science. So I want to talk about this real quick, and I will keep this short, not make it a full-on lecture. But the communication process works as that chart shows. So you've got the sender, the person talking, the person communicating. They have a message. but that message has to be encoded to be able to be sent. So we think about it in our brain, we process it, and then we send it out by whatever medium we're going to use, whether it's talking, whether it's video, whether it's an email. The person on the other end receives it, but they have to decode it. So they read it, they listen, they interpret. Okay, and so that's the basic part. But to have true communication, there needs to be that bottom arrow going up on one side or the other. There has to be feedback. So the sender has to make sure that the person heard them, and they need some type of feedback on what the person interpreted it as. The receiver needs to give a response to what they heard, and then they also need to then get feedback from the sender on their response. And so it's a big circle, it's a big loop. So listening plays in this today in the encoding, decoding process. So when we're listening to someone, the hard part of listening to someone to really hear them is to not get wrapped up in our thoughts and what we're thinking. Are we thinking of what we're going to say next? Are we thinking of, we already understand what they're talking about and we're already ready to respond? And if you do those things, you're not going to receive the message properly. So I just wanted to give that little preface on listening from the philosophical, the collegiate background on how listening works, because listening is hard just because of our heads, our minds, what we're thinking about. So I'm going to open this discussion up on listening right now with a question. So I want one of you guys to tell me a brief story on when you've been in a situation with communicating with someone where it failed. So who wants to go first? Let me ask this question. Let me ask an easy question then, if you're all thinking hard. How many of you are married? Okay, all of y'all married. So how many, I want you to tell me a story about a time communication failed. This shouldn't be that hard.
Oh, brother.
And I don't care if it was communication failed coming from someone else or coming from you.
So, Mark, I'm going to step aside for this one because my wife is watching on Facebook Live, so I am not going to even go there.
Lisa would forgive you because you would take the blame for it, right? All right, who wants to take a shot at a failure in communicating?
Well, that happens all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So give me a story. Give me an example.
Well, have you ever had a conversation with someone who spoke to you, and when they got done, you just simply said, huh? The reason why you said that is because you weren't listening. So you need to practice what's called proactive listening. So when someone talks, I'm always going, I see, I understand, okay, terrific. I'm acknowledging the conversation.
Which is put that feedback loop, right?
Exactly. And then what you can do is you can go ahead and say, and if I hear you correctly, what you're saying is, and restate it.
Okay, so restating it back to the person, what good does that do, Ron?
It shows that you understand and you're answering their direct question.
Okay, so I'm going to turn to Michael now. Michael, what if we do what Ron just said? Okay, we actually shut our thoughts off and we're focusing exclusively on what the person's saying, and we give it back to them. In other words, what you just told me was this. The person then says, no, that's wrong. What do?
Listen.
Well, I'm talking to Michael now, Ron.
Exactly. You listen and ask them. Would you please clarify that for me? What did I not understand?
Okay.
Can you help me with that, because I thought I understood A, B, and C, but apparently that's differently. So could you please re-explain that, or help me to better understand where I missed the gaps in the communication there, or in my listening?
Okay. So I'm going to talk to Alex now. Alex, why don't we do that more often? Why don't we do what Michael just said more often?
Sometimes I think when you're in the middle of having a conversation with somebody, you simply forget what the rules are to listen. Oftentimes, it's just practice. You have to practice listening, people get involved in what they're trying to accomplish, the end goal. And I think oftentimes you forget to actually stop, make sure you're understanding what the customer is saying.
And Mark,
Yes, Michael. Or
especially
Mike.
in sales,
No, I
yes.
got the names right. I was going for Mike, not Michael. He was waving.
No problem, no problem. Just don't call me late for dinner.
Okay, you got.
In a sales situation, as sales professionals, many times we are locked and loaded on our objective. We want to show the car, we want to do a presentation, we want to move them down the road to the sale. So we're locked and loaded on what we want to do, and many times we're not really listening. We ask questions, they give us a response. If it's not what we want to hear, we just kind of hover over that or keep moving. I was in a sales situation when I was buying a car, and the gentleman, I told him, now, Gary, I only have an hour and a half today. Now, if we can do this in an hour and a half, I'm fine. And he did not listen at all. At an hour and a half, I told Jerry, I said, Jerry, me and Mama Bear only had an hour and a half today. We've got to go to church. We've got this going on. And he just kept going. So he had his agenda, and I started to get very frustrated, and it caused my wife to get frustrated, but he was locked and loaded on his agenda, and he was going to bulldoze on and keep this thing going.
Right. Mike, we'll go to you now. What was your thought?
Well, actually, Michael kind of said a little bit of what I was going to say, but when Alex was talking and using his illustration, it made me think about, so often we take it for granted. We don't even think about listening, because what Michael said is it's only natural that we pay attention to our own agenda. But what you have to realize in a selling situation, and it doesn't really matter what you're selling, okay? It doesn't have to be for work. It could be for gamesmanship or anything else. We have to take the time to listen to find out what the needs of the customer are every time, okay? Then when we feel secure in what the knowledge is, then we can go back and approach it. But our own line, if you will, our pitch, should not be made up until after we've harvested all the information we can, or certainly all the important information that we need to then come back with some sort of a presentation. Okay, and it's really interesting how if you take your glasses off and lean forward a little bit, it's amazing how people will really begin to understand that you are listening. All kinds of little techniques like that. It's like, take that, I'm gonna write. Do you mind if I make a note of that and just make a little note and come back with your eyes up and look square in their eyeballs?
Wait a minute.
I've seen a situation. Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay.
I've
Go
seen
ahead.
a situation when the salesperson was working with a customer on a dealer trade, and the car came in, and the customer went out to look at it with the salesperson. He's like, "This isn't the car. I wanted a wagon, not a sedan." And so you listen, you think you're on the same page, but you're not clarifying and making sure that what you heard was exactly what the customer wanted. But yeah,
Exactly.
like that, you have to be engaged and verify what you're saying. Like
Absolutely.
Mr. Shinneberry, you
So you're suggesting, Mike, you're suggesting that it's okay to take notes?
Absolutely.
It really,
no,
I'm saying, I'm being silly saying that, right?
No, I know.
It's real,
But
because
if you talk or watch so many salespeople, car dealerships especially, nobody takes notes. Well, the ones that are really good and understand do take notes. And I could tell you a story of a dealership in Portsmouth, Ohio, that one day we had this conversation, and the next visit back about a month or so later, it was amazing what those guys were able to do. And at this date in our history, they were doing clipboards. Now they're doing iPads. Okay, but there you are. It works. It works. It works.
Okay, Mark, you want to continue on?
No. That was it. That was just my
So
whole
let me
because so many salespeople are afraid to take notes.
Why are they afraid? What is the problem?
I don't know.
The salesperson is afraid because the salesperson, by and large, is lazy. Not that they're afraid; they're just lazy. They don't want to do what they're supposed to do.
I think more ignorant is the case, Ron. I don't, that, maybe lazy, but if they found that it increased their closing ratio by 20 or 25% at least, that all of a sudden they wouldn't be so lazy.
How many things do we suggest that they should do to increase their sales? If we increase it by all the numbers we think we increased it by, 25, 30, 15, they'd be doing 380% of their business. They don't listen. They're lazy.
So I've been told, going through this process, taking notes, carrying a clipboard, a portfolio, an iPad, whatever, to jot down what the customer tells you. I have been told by salespeople before that makes them look unprofessional.
Untrue.
Taking notes. Now,
I know they say that.
I don't think any of us on this panel think so, but why would a salesperson think that makes them look unprofessional?
I'll shut up.
Great question. Why?
Is it pride? Is it ego? I think it's as you guys have kind of said, it's a misconception.
Absolutely.
Right. They don't understand,
right.
and they're overrating their listening and remembering abilities. Customers have a lot of information to give, and salespeople can't always remember everything that they're told. But the littlest thing can make the difference in the sale, can it?
Well, can I ask a question?
Sure.
If I'm a salesperson and I'm talking to a customer and I'm taking some notes, wouldn't it make my job a whole lot easier when I said, let me go talk to my sales manager? And I've got, several notes. And that's a good thing, isn't it? Now we can start to discuss and make a vehicle call or whatever. There's all kinds of things that you can take with that.
Yep. So let me go this direction now on listening. So if we're going to listen properly, and we've talked about it, you guys have talked about you need to practice listening.
Yeah.
How do you practice listening?
To practice.
Shut your mouth and open your ears.
Yeah.
Why did God give us 2 ears and 1 mouth? To listen twice as much as we talk.
Right.
Ask a question, listen to the answer, comment on the answer. If nothing,
how do you shut off what's going on between your ears?
Yeah, salespeople, I think oftentimes salespeople get into a routine because you sell cars on a daily basis. You're dealing with 5, 10, 15 customers a day doing the exact same walk around the exact same way. And I think it's easy for salespeople to get into a routine and forget to slow down. Oh, you want to look at another Chevy Malibu? Great. Here's the 15th one that I've showed today. And you lose the fact that the customer only goes through this process once every 3 years at the most.
So I think you said something very.
So I think a lot of the listening comes in where you're not slowing down and thinking about the customer. You're just going through your routine.
And that's critical, isn't it? Slowing down. Salespeople are. Yeah. Why are they always in a hurry?
They want to wait. They want to get the next up bus when it pulls in.
But who's more important, that future customer or that current customer?
Right.
Right. There's no one more important than the one you're dealing with right now.
Absolutely.
If you have that philosophy and actually use it and follow it, you're going to listen better, I think, aren't you?
Yeah.
Back some years ago, Johnny Carson was doing some interviews and he asked a question.
Hey, Ron, before you go on, will you tell us who Johnny Carson is for the younger viewers in the audience?
I think they're all older than me.
Okay. All right, go ahead. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Johnny Carson used to say that the Tonight Show was no less spontaneous than a shuttle launch. They will rehearse and say, I'm going to ask you this. Here's what you're going to say. I'm going to ask you this. Here's what you can say. And they would program everything so there were no surprises. So you got to look at the repetition of doing it over and over and over again till it becomes, remember we discussed this back a while ago, becomes an unconscious action. You don't have to give it mental recognition. You simply act on it because it's ingrained in your thinking. And before you know it, I know that I used to ask the same questions time and again because it got me the information that I needed. And I applied that information to the circumstance to create a positive buying atmosphere.
Okay. Mark, again, I keep thinking you've been quiet today, so I need to hear from you.
I'm listening. That's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about listening. And I can't even stress how important it is because I'm absorbing everything that the rest of the group is saying because it's all valuable information. I think if you're a salesperson and you're watching this broadcast, the number one thing you need to remember is if you actually listen to your customers, they will tell you exactly what they want and how to sell it to them.
That's right. That's right.
Exactly right.
Okay. So, have all of you played the game telephone or operator?
Oh,
You
yeah.
get between people and you start with a phrase here and it goes here. And always the phrase at the end is different from the phrase at the beginning, right?
Yep.
Why is that?
Too much
People don't listen.
filtration.
What was that?
People's
sorry,
People don't listen.
their interpretation of it. They
So-
simply hear something and they interpret it.
Okay, so in the game of telephone, one of the critical things that is removed from that game is feedback, isn't it? Because you're not allowed to ask the person, could you repeat that?
I guess that's right.
Right? You hear it and then you got to move it forward. So feedback or asking those follow-up questions really are a key part of this process, aren't they?
Absolutely.
So Michael, you want to elaborate on that, follow up on that a little bit?
Oh, most definitely. It's definitely key because that can definitely help you to move down the road to the sale. You've got to make sure that you know how to address the customer's needs and wants and desires. And you've got to listen, you've got to clarify to make sure that you're going down the right road. You don't want to show them a green car when they're looking for a red car, a coupe versus four-door automatic versus manual transmission. You've got to make sure that you're locked and loaded with the customer. So you can't lead them down a road unless you know which way they want to go. And you've got to clarify, you've got to close the gap on the communication to make sure that you are giving them what they want, because you don't want to get to the point of asking for the order and you're not ready to go there yet because you haven't really clarified and thoroughly understood what they're looking for and delivered on what they're looking for.
Right. So let me ask this question. We've been kind of talking in the realm of talking, right? Face to face, maybe telephone, maybe video. How does this communication process change, or it doesn't change? How does it get modified to work properly if you're doing something like email or even more prevalent today, texting? What are the dangers of communication trying to use the sales process when you're texting someone?
Yeah, it's a lot harder. You take the voice inflection out. You don't have, you can't gauge the customer's facial expressions and how they are interpreting your message. So it makes it a lot more difficult by text.
So do you have suggestions on how to make that process better?
Well, one thing I've done is I make sure I try to be as clear as I can on a text message, the actual message. And now with my phone, I can actually hit a button in the text message and do about a 30-second audio. so I can do some clarification through the audio. Try to make the text message as clear as possible, but then clarify and go over it again in a short audio message.
Right.
Yeah, and ask questions, right?
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So, Mark,
I'm with you, Mike. Ask questions to clarify. Ask clarifying questions.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not doing the audio, I like that audio, Michael, but ask questions. A lot of questions.
Yes.
Right.
You need to clarify.
okay. A suggestion I'd like to make with texting, in addition to, I like the audio, addition because you can send audio texts now, right? Pretty much, right? Record yourself doing it. Is when before you send a text, before you hit that send button, read it, because there's this evil thing called autocorrect.
That's right.
And change what you want to say into something totally different. And in personal relationships and personal things that can be funny, this is a business situation we're in, right? We don't want that autocorrect to change a word or two to completely change the meaning, do we?
Not at all.
All right, so let's talk about email. How does the communication process get modified for email?
It's the same thing. You got to communicate clearly. You got to enunciate clearly. You got to make sure that what you're saying is what you wanted to say and what is the message you want to send. Reread your email before you send it. I found that if I don't do that, I find mistakes right away. And if I read it and I read it out loud, then I find the error and I could fix it before I send it.
Very nice.
Yeah, and don't hesitate to include a message, a file, let's say, with even more detail.
You know,
Okay.
with what's going on today in this pandemic world, you know, you see it on every commercial, contactless communication, contactless delivery. You know, we are basically say the same thing with email or telephone.
To follow up on Ron's comment of rereading your email to make sure you spell check it, to make sure all that, there is software out there, and I'm not endorsing anything. I'm just saying this is something you might want to look at. It's called Grammarly, Grammarly.com, and it's free. And what it does, it's a little plug-in, and it will spell check your message. Draw a little underline and let you know if you've got a duplicated word, if you've got a misspelled word. It'll even go so far as to give you sentences, and it's free. So it's something to consider if you're a fast typer, but you make mistakes when you fast type. And it works for basically all of the email programs. So, but yeah, I mean, we're trying to present a professional image, right? We don't want to send out an email with misspellings and bad grammar and all that stuff. If we're trying to present that professional image, do we?
No.
Right.
All right. So, yes.
I know in writing, I've written 18 books. And in the 18 books, when I've had them edited by other people, they said to me, you write exactly as you talk. Now, I'm a New Yorker living in South Florida. I'm all screwed up. But the bottom line is, the way I talk is the way I write. So the way I say things, I say it on paper the same way I say it verbally. So sometimes you got to get someone to translate that into American English, not Brooklyn English.
Right. Clean it up, as it were, to make it accessible to the masses, right?
Exactly.
All right, guys, we're about out of time. We're at the 30-minute mark now, so I'm going to give you all a chance to recap yourselves. So go ahead and give me a recap on what we've talked about today, and I'm going to start actually with Alex. So, Alex, give us a recap and closing from your podium.
Listening is so important for salespeople. You have to make sure you're understanding the customer so you can ultimately get into closing the sale. But it's listening on a step-by-step. Your first step, how do you get the car in front of them? Second step, listening for what the equipment is they want in the car, and just keep trudging forward with customers, and always just have an open ear on what they're saying and how they're saying it. It's so important. Thanks.
Okay. All right, we'll go to Michael next. Michael, you're on.
Yes, listening is one of the important steps or elements in being successful as a car salesman or being successful at anything. And what we're talking about on these Facebook Lives and in these presentations is all about being successful. And the thing I would like to leave salespeople with, to have a competitive advantage no matter what you're selling, is just pretty much a life principle. Successful people do
Do a
what
link next week.
successful people are not willing to do.
Okay.
Yeah, true.
All right, Ron, you're up next.
Yes. Well, I'm listening. I think that these little conversations that we have are very informative and very helpful. So if somebody pays attention to what's being said, they may garner one thing that can make all the difference in the world. It's not a matter about quantum steps. It's one little itty bitty thing. If you do one thing now that you haven't done in the past, you'll get better results.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Mike?
I'll make it real short. Listening is gold, and you can take it to the bank.
Okay. Very nice. And finally, Mark?
So I'm going to reiterate what I said a few minutes ago. If you listen to your customer, they will tell you exactly how to sell them whatever it is you're selling, and they'll tell you exactly what they need. That's it.
Okay. All right. Very nice. And then my wrap up is, again, communication. Listening is a vital part of it, a key part of it, and it's one of the hardest parts because we've got our own internal conversation going on most, if not all of the time, and we need to shut ourselves up in our head to listen properly to make sure that we can understand what we're hearing, or what we're reading, or what we're texting. Don't put your interpretation on top of it because of what's going on in your head. Truly go for the message that's being sent, not the message that you think you're getting. So with that, I just want to put the slide up again saying we're on every Thursday at noon. Come back and join us. We're going to talk about some aspect of the sales process, whether it's listening or talking or presenting or product knowledge or closing, you name it, we're going to talk about it. Thursdays at noon, about 30 minutes long. And let me pull my panel back up here again. So here we are, and there may be other faces as we go, but thank you for attending. Thank you for listening, and we will see you all next week. Have a great week.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.